A wide land, vast in moor and grey stone, where live exactly 288 true aristocrats. Sensitive examples of grace and sophistication, and as you know, there's no substitute for style. Good breeding always tells.
John, Alec, Jimmy, I want you to go down. Just come on a sharp canter 6 furlongs. Keep a good hold of them. And I want Bob and Ernie and Walter. Now I want you to go down and let them stride on for 3.5. All right?
288 horses in the stables of the 11 trainers around Middleham. The last time I watched horses in training was before the Kentucky Derby, in that lush land of bluegrass and white fences around Lexington. As you might expect, American training has a slit-eyed assembly line quality. But in this wild place of gills, of thorngill and ashgill, ferngill and breckengill, methods are happy, even haphazard, not a stopwatch in sight. Just the knowing eyes of trainers whose methods have changed little during the past century. Today, about 10,000 horses are preparing for Britain's 486 race meetings, watched over by some 400 licensed trainers. Yorkshire's always been a horse breeding centre, for our chalky, sandy subsoil grows fine clover free from coarse grass. The earliest recorded race meeting was at Wetherby back in 206 AD. For the entertainment of the Emperor Severus. But I'd say there's always been some kind of horse racing here from the moment 2 Yorkshiremen met 2 horses. Richard III ruled England from Middleham at the foot of Wensleydale. And there are still plenty of good country seats here, for horses now control the town. Everybody rides out. The main street's occupied by small people who live, not by British Standard Time, but by the 2 o'clock at Doncaster, the 3:30 at Newcastle, the 4 o'clock at York. It's said that the average height of people around here is 3 inches less than the rest of the country. It's been a many-horse town since the Middle Ages, and today owners send yearlings here to be trained by men like Neville Crump and Dick Peacock, Ernie Weems and Sam Armstrong. These trainers of Middleham are an exclusive and much-envied group, and with their guard dogs and guarded conversations, naturally secretive. They move through course or stable without actually seeing anyone, fearful lest they're asked for information. They don't easily discuss their methods or their lives. Not even the trainer who in the past 20 years has had 800 winners, Sam Hall.
Well, I'll never forget really when I applied for my license. I had to have somebody to back me, you see, and to explain to the stewards of the jockey club that I was a competent man to hold a license. And I think they asked the late Mr. Matthew Peacock, who was one of the greatest trainers of all times, and a great character. And he sent for me one morning and he said, I said, now then, you've applied for your license. I said, yes, I have, sir. He said, well, now then, you'll get it. And he said, I'm going to give you a bit of advice. He said, you keep yourself in the best company and your horses in the worst. And he said, you'll never go far wrong. So I've always followed that from that very day, and it's done me very well.
Now, how do you set about keeping yourself in the best company?
Well, you mix with the best people. You see, you want to get to know the best people, you know.
A formula which may not work for everyone. Sam trains 52 horses, Joe Hartigan 16. Northern representative of the Trainers' Federation, his grandfather was a trainer and his father had 2,000 winners. Would you call yourself successful?
No, I wouldn't. I've had good years and bad years, you know, average, I'd say.
Now, you say that you're not tremendously successful. On what do you blame this?
Well, when I say I'm not tremendously successful, is lack of horses and lack of good horses. I could be successful if I had 50 good horses, but then so could many of the others.
Yes, yes. So what would you complain of most, then?
I wouldn't complain. I'd complain that I think it's very hard to make a living at the job.
More binoculars focus on the new trainer at Breckengill, I suspect, than on her horses. Sally Hall, Uncle Sam's niece, youngest woman trainer in the country and the first in the north.
Well, with me, I think the first year all eyes are on me, you know. I've not got to make a mistake. Make sure everything goes all right.
But I'm sure people make allowances for you if you do make a mistake.
I don't think they do. Not really. You can't afford to. Not training horses.
But I mean, can't you sweet talk your owners in a way that other trainers can't?
I try. I try very often, but it doesn't work.
Only two men make money out of racing, that's the bookmakers and the jockeys.
Leave money on the wheel. Beat down the change.
Nobody knows how much money is gambled on horses. It's probably more than £900 million a year. Say, £3 million every day. On the tote, in 15,000 betting shops, or with the 900 bookies trading exclusively on our 64 racecourses. Coming on stage, the little men who affect the family fortunes, and can do fairly well themselves too. Lester Piggott, a champion, had 557 races last year, won 177 of them, and must have made at least £40,000 in his 10% prize money from owners. And £32 million was bet on his horses. Trainers like Sam Hall, keeping himself in the best company, can also do well. Last year, top trainer Noel Merlis won 60 races with stakes of more than £250,000. It's hard to fix their social position, for racegoers span all classes, and the wedding of a trainer's daughter has been attended by Elizabeth Taylor and the Queen Mother. But just having friends among top people doesn't pay the wages. The average trainer has 25 horses, each bringing in around £1,000 a year in fees. Trainers get 10% of the owner's winnings, like the jockeys, but good fodder and skilled stablemen have grown scarce, while fees have gone up only slightly. The Benson Committee's just recommended that, as a tonic for racing, prize money should be pepped up to more than £9 million by 1970, and the 127 major races each average a £10,000 prize, and for the Derby winner, £85,000. You may have your own ideas about the money bookies make, but the Benson Committee's just decided that their abolition would be resented by the public for, they say, bookmakers are part of the spectacle. Yes, there's big money about, but as every punter knows, you can't win 'em all. There's one love affair with a horse that'll never be quite the same again. Kentucky stables are guarded by electrified fences and light rays, but at Middleham they're more likely to rely on some shambling, friendly old guard dog. He may not strike fear into the hearts of the dopers, but he's company for the horses. These gregarious characters stand in their boxes 22 hours out of every 24 and just pine for companionship. Without it, they get the fidgets. And who's going to put money on a neurotic horse?
They're mostly honest or dishonest, I think. Unfortunately, most of them are honest, but it's very difficult with a horse that is dishonest. Once he's taken a dislike and made his mind up that he's not going to race, there's not much you can do about it, really.
One of the British characteristics in dealing with animals is to give them human attributes, normally. I mean, I've been told, for example, that you can tell the sort of horse it is by the expression on its face.
Yes, I don't quite know about that. They're all different, you know. I don't like ones with a sort of mean face. Little ears I don't like, and a broad forehead, you know, that's not a good thing. But I don't think you can tell a lot by looking at them. It's the part you can't see is the inside.
Can you elaborate? You say you've got to know your horse. I mean, how do they differ?
Well, some are very highly strung. We find some that maybe you've got to send them away the night before to a race meeting, even if it's only 40 miles down the road, because if you take them that particular day of the race, they get so worked up they can't settle, so you send them away overnight, they stay in the box at the stables, then the next day they settle themselves down the fine. Otherwise they sweat and funk and, you know, the sweat pours off them and they've run the race before they set off. So
what about the bloody-minded ones? What
Well,
do you do with them?
Sell them, if possible. You don't want to know them. You know, you give them 2 or 3 chances, and then if that doesn't help, well, there's nothing you can do. I mean, if they just won't do it, and they're villains, well, you're better to sell them and buy something else.
Do you see horses as people, as so many others do, or is a horse a horse?
Well, yes, a horse is like a human being. He's got a personality. Some are kind and generous, some are unkind and ungenerous in both their ways and their ability. They won't give them their best all the time, you know.
No.
Some respond to kindness, some need more or less correcting, you know. You've got to give them a little bit of punishment now and again just to put them straight, and they react to that. But in the main, I think kindness, they react more to kindness than they do to punishment, you know.
What a way to treat an aristocrat. A yearling's worth anything from 100 to 28,000 guineas. And last season, a 2-year-old called Vaguely Noble was more than vaguely expensive and fetched 136,000 guineas. They're looked after by stable lads who come cheaper. From cities like Liverpool and Hull, drawn by the sunlit glamour of the sport of queens, though sometimes forgetting the summer weather on High Moor and the mucking out.
They write, as a rule, especially the young ones, you know, they write and want to be apprenticed.
What sort of money do they earn?
Well, the apprentices don't, really. They get pocket money, but it varies. It starts off at about 15 shillings, and it works up to about £3.10, I suppose. But the paid men are different. They get about nearly £13 a week up here.
What about that chap leading that line? Now, how old is he?
Well, he's older than he looks. I think he's 16.
Is he?
But he's very light. He's the right size. I think he weighs about 5'7".
He's 16?
Yes, yes. I think he is.
Looks about 11.
We'll ask him. How old are you, Scouse?
16 and a half.
Nearly 16.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What sort of future has a boy like that got?
Well, it's very difficult to get one his size. He's got a good future. He could make a jockey. But the trouble is, the others grow so much, they start his size, and in about, a year's time, they grow and they get heavy, and of course that's it. They want to be under 6 stone when they're 16.
What does a boy need? Can you tell when you get one here if he's going to make it?
You can tell after a few months anyway, and I think, you see, most of them have never ridden before. I mean, he'd never seen a horse or anything. And he can now ride quite well. He hasn't been here a year. He can ride canters and do his horses. He's been to the races with them, you know. He's done very well in the time.
I don't see why a boy who's never seen a horse before should write to you.
Well, I think it's his size. I think people tell them you're small, you ought to be a jockey, you know.
You're a jockey or a page boy?
Yeah, but it's an interesting job. I think he'd probably enjoy this a lot more than being a page boy.
And what about female foibles? I'm thinking like being superstitious, for example.
Yes, I am. Well, I think 13's my lucky number. Because our first winner, I think, was 13. And 13, I've ridden winners, you know, abroad in races, and I've been 13 then. And I think that this is my lucky number.
Any others?
Well, we don't like going to the races and find a level crossing, the gates closed. That we never have a winner. Never. That is fatal, or if we meet a funeral going the same way, then we never have a winner, but if the funeral's going the other way, we're all right.
I hate to meet wedding, going to a meeting. It stops me if I'm going to have a bet, it stops me having a bet, and I hate to see one magpie, and I never mind passing a funeral. That always brings me luck. Level crossing gates, if they're closed, I mean, nowadays we've got the flyovers, that's much better. We don't see many of those, but I'm very superstitious. Never walk under a ladder. If you have a loose horse, you can have a maximum bet. If your boy gets thrown and the horse is loose, that's a good sign. Last morning I had 2 horses loose, I had a double.
On summer Saturdays, there are sometimes 5 meetings across the country to which horses no longer have to walk. Instead, they travel in cosseted style. Good horses make good trainers, they say, though what separates good from bad is often not so much the ability to get horses fit as to know when they are fit, at the top of their form and ready to run.
It's a trainer's job, really, to try and outwit the handicapper. I think you've got to think like a handicapper thinks, if you know what I mean. The great thing is that you've got to try and get, in a legal manner, your horses into the best races with as little weight as you possibly can. When you start with these things, Alan, it doesn't matter what they cost. They're all another yearling, and they grow into another 2-year-old. And you would try to assess their values as far as you can, but this is very difficult in the early stages. You know, we get what we call the Christmas flyers. These are the ones that show the early speed and you say, oh, this is going to be a cracker. Invariably, when it comes to April, May, they can't get out of their own way. And the horses that don't show you any form in the spring start to catch up on them and really leave them. Well, the great thing is to be able to assess a horse's ability in the early days, and he'll improve as he goes on. But you must start them off in the bottom class and work up.
As in every other walk of life, there are more losers than winners. And according to Newmarket's MP, Eldon Griffiths, most trainers can only make ends meet by the occasional sale and successful betting.
To go back, I think the simplest way to put it is, before the war, they paid the lads 45 shillings, which wasn't very much, and we all used to charge, my father and the people at that time, they charged 4 guineas a week to their owners. Well, that was almost double the lads' wages. Well, now, the most we can charge, say, would be 13 guineas a week, and we're paying the lad £13 a week.
I was talking to somebody who was telling me that trainers lose money on every horse they train. Now, is that just the classic and traditional complaint, or is it true?
That's absolutely true. It's as I say, the only way they could make money, if they were only making 10 shillings pre-war, when they were charging their owners double one man's wage. Obviously now, if we're charging the same as one man's wage, we can't possibly make any profit.
I mean, I've got this place here. I mean, my capital outlay is tremendous. My wage bill every week is over £350 to run this place. A jockey, all he needs is valet and a couple of new saddles a year.
But that's a score of jockeys out of several hundreds who are doing very well. The proportion of trainers who do well must be much greater.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you take the... you can look through any of the lists and the trainers, the top 12 trainers, very few earn over about 20 or 30,000 a year in stake money. Well, you reckon on their 10% of that. I mean, it's only 2,000 or 3,000, isn't it?
Raven Roy, 50 bob down per pound.
Second to one, actually.
The trainer's life may not always be a happy or profitable one, though to the outsider it seems an agreeable mixture of pastoral peace backstage, punctuated by occasional gracious appearances in the limelight on stage, escorting owners into the very innermost enclosures. On race day, the trainer plays modestly to his audience, publicly courted for his wisdom and secret knowledge. And let's face it, he is as close as you can ever get to the horse's mouth.
Raven Roy, 50 bob down, pound 39.
At York, Sam Hall has two winners. His third owner is, improbably, the lovely Amy MacDonald with Lionel Blair. Today, as with many, many owners and punters before her, she needs champagne not for celebration, but for consolation. Now, how much did you pay for the horse?
He was, what, 2006?
Something like that, 2006.
2,600 guineas?
Yes.
And what do you reckon it costs you to keep him with Sam?
About, what, 1,300
Yeah,
maybe?
between 12 and 1,500 pounds in a year.
Between 12 and 1,500. And he hasn't won at all yet?
No, well, this is only his second race. So.
Yes. But you've had him for how long?
Since September?
Last September.
Now, are you going to buy more horses?
I don't know. I'm not a great expert in horses. You know, I love horses, but I don't really know anything about them. I leave it entirely up to Sam. And, you know, this is my first horse. Now, you'll probably be my last. I don't know.